The Holga Experiment began, as the title suggested, as an experiment. I was experimenting in ways of approaching my creative practice. My initial project for the course was in studio portraiture, and it just wasn't giving me the creative focus I was after. So I went from a totally controlled shooting environment, the studio, to a completely scaled down technical method, to just a single camera with a single fixed focal length lens. My interest in Japanese philosophy began when I was returning home from a fairly exhausting several-day workshop in Canberra. And I was walking past the news agency / bookshop in Canberra Airport, and this little pale blue book just really stood out. And there has been some criticisms about westernisation of these values, and there's something lost in the exchange of culture and translation of language. However, the concept of Ikigai really struck an chord with me and my thinking about how I practice and appreciate photography. Ikigai, in a somewhat oversimplified description, is about gaining joy out of your life by having a certain purpose. It's not about success or goal setting or personal growth. It's much deeper than that and a lot more personal. My Ikigai is both my family and photography. As I read more about the concept of Ikigai, my creative practice began to make more sense, in that I began to understand the why I practice photography. It is a difficult concept to understand, but my purpose in creating good images that move people, images that have meaning to the world, is my Ikigai. The philosophical element of Wabi-sabi, however, is about finding beauty in imperfection. And Wabi-sabi is also a lesson in life, in that throughout life's ups, downs and complications, we need to take time to appreciate the good things in life too. Wabi-sabi is, in its deeper meaning, is about the ability to appreciate small and simple things. So the work combines this concept of intuitive photography with creative expression. It changes my approach to photography in the way that I become a hunter of images rather than a farmer of images. Farmer being someone that cultivates images in the studio, as opposed to hunter who finds images in the wild. So a lot of this work is about that shift of thinking, that shift from control to intuition. The work is also highly autobiographical. It's autobiographical because it's about my own personal experience with photography. Photography is an important motif throughout the work. The statement and the footprint of photography, I hope, is present in the work. The work reflects concepts of the photographic. So the artifacts present in the image represent the optical nature of photography. The optical artifacts are produced organically, which means that they're actually coming from the capture lens. They're not coming from digital manipulation. These artifacts serve two purposes. One, as a statement about lens-based photography, and secondly, as the vision of the Holga aesthetic as it relates to Wabi-sabi. The Holga aesthetic began when toy cameras were manufactured in China in the 1980s by Holga. These cameras were 1:20 format or 6x6 or 2¼ square format. Because of their inexpensive manufacturing, their cheap plastic lenses, they had all sorts of artifacts. After all, they were a toy camera. The low quality or the look or aesthetic of the images became very popular. It's difficult to say why the Holga aesthetic became popular. I think the concept of Wabi-sabi that actually has some meaning in answering that question. Wabi-sabi certainly goes a long way in being able to provide some insights into the popularity of the Holga aesthetic, a look that is imperfect but certainly beautiful in its own right. As mentioned earlier, the original purpose of the work was to simplify the creative practice and the creative process. When the work became the major project rather than just a simple experiment, I established two rules. The first one was the image format had to be square as a reference to the original Holga 6x6 film cameras. The second rule was that there is no contrived or planned images, they all have to be found images. The method is really simple. I shoot with a digital camera body with a Holga lens, a cheap plastic lens, fitted onto the digital camera body. My approach is that the work is simply a statement, visually if you like, of my own personal Ikigai. It is about how photography affects my life and thinking, hence the motif of photography throughout the work, as a mini statement about photography. This notion of simplifying the methodology and the way of seeing, I think has really worked for my creative practice. It has opened a new way of seeing for me personally. It enables me to record these ephemeral moments I have with the environment that I'm actually in at the time, and it I think has really started to develop. I think it's about 20, maybe 30% done. It's still got a long way to go, but certainly I think the work has got stronger. The more I shoot, the more I engage in this type of methodological approach, the stronger the work seems to be.